The elegant Marchesa mansion glows beneath the lights of a sophisticated evening gathering. On the ground floor, the guests chat animatedly, while the clinking of glasses and soft music create an atmosphere of exclusivity. Everything seems perfect, carefully arranged to project success and harmony. However, that image is brutally shattered when, upstairs, a woman staggers out of a room. She has foam around her mouth, her eyes are unfocused, and she can barely remain standing. She tries to move down the hallway, clinging to the wall, but her body suddenly stops responding. Within seconds, she loses her balance and falls from the balcony into the main hall, crashing down in front of the horrified guests. What was supposed to be a memorable night instantly becomes a scene of panic. The woman is Scarlett Marsante, and she is dead. Meanwhile, at CBI headquarters, Patrick Jane is hypnotizing a murder suspect. His voice is calm and precise, guiding the man deeper and deeper into the trance. Everything suggests that Jane is about to obtain a confession when Teresa Lisbon bursts into the room to announce that a new and urgent case has come up. On top of that, the suspect's lawyer is on his way, so Jane is forced to wake him just before he speaks. Lisbon, who is not a fan of these kinds of methods, makes it clear that she does not have much faith in hypnosis as an investigative tool. Shortly afterward, the team arrives at the mansion to examine the scene. While the agents discuss the possibility of poisoning, Jane moves around with his usual attention to detail, studying the family portraits and decorations, as if every object could tell him something about the victim's life. As he leans over the body, he notices something strange. One of Scarlett's eyes is perfectly made up, while the other is completely natural. The difference is far too obvious to be an accident. Intrigued, Jane quickly goes upstairs and enters the bathroom Scarlett must have used before the party. There he finds a tube of mascara beside the sink, and on a cocktail napkin, a message written in lipstick, "Now we're even." It does not look like suicide or an accident. Someone wanted that message to be found. Later, Jane and Lisbon head to Villa Marsante Estates, an exclusive private community where every house seems to compete with the next in luxury. High-end cars sit along the entrances, while the silence of the neighborhood creates an almost artificial sense of security. Outside the Marsante residence, Victor, the widower, says goodbye to two female neighbors who accompany him with a closeness that borders on theatrical. One of them even hugs him for longer than necessary, a gesture Jane does not overlook. While Lisbon officially informs him that Scarlett died after being poisoned with rat poison, Jane discreetly searches the victim's purse. He quickly notices that her keys are missing. Without wasting time, he decides to pressure Victor and asks whether he was involved with one of the women who had been outside, Asra. The man firmly denies it and explains that she is simply the manager of his accounts. Jane appears to accept the answer, although his expression makes it clear that he is not completely convinced. Victor explains that he is a successful real estate developer and refers to the jewelry his wife made as nothing more than trinkets. Jane examines the pieces with interest. Although some of them are striking, he senses that Scarlett seemed to aspire to a higher social level than the one she actually had. According to Victor, the party had been her idea. She wanted everyone to see that they were going through a period of great financial success. Most of the guests belonged to the country club, where Scarlett served as president of the women's committee, a position she apparently took very seriously. As they walk away from the house, Lisbon asks Jane what caught his attention so much about Asra. He explains that the way she hugged Victor seemed too rehearsed, like a performance meant to be watched. Gestures like that, he points out, usually hide some kind of deception. At first, he thought it might be an affair, but now he suspects the truth could be more complicated. To move the investigation forward, Jane and Rigsby visit the country club. The place is overflowing with activity. A tennis tournament is being held alongside a silent auction, and the atmosphere is just as competitive as it is elegant. Rigsby shares an intuition with Jane. He believes the killer could be a woman. The use of lipstick, the poison, and the personal tone of the message all seem to point in that direction. Jane agrees. The crime carries an emotional weight that is difficult to ignore. Over the microphone, a woman named Heather asks Patience, Mandy, and Jackie to come over, since the police would like to speak with them. The three women confirm that they attended the party because, practically speaking, attending events organized by the committee president was mandatory. The tension between them is obvious from the very beginning. Passive-aggressive comments quickly begin to fly, and one accuses another of being jealous of Scarlett. Amid the accusations and sharp looks, Jackie mentions something important. She saw Scarlett having a heated argument with Ashrad during the party. Looking to confirm the rumors, Jane and Rigsby turn to Mandy, who is known for always knowing what is happening within their social circle. She laughs at the idea of an affair between Ashrad and Victor, insisting that they are only friends. However, she does not hesitate to point out that the husband is usually the main suspect. He may seem like a good man, she says, but the statistics are not on his side. Jane and Rigsby admit that her logic makes sense. When Jane speaks with patience, she openly admits that she did not like Scarlett, although she insists that she would never kill her. She also comments that, despite everything, she admired the jewelry Scarlett designed. Then she offers her own theory. She is convinced that Ashrad and Victor were having an affair, and that jealousy may have triggered the murder. After saying this, she quickly apologizes so she will not miss the chance to bid on a luxury stay at the Cliffside Inn. The next stop is the Women's Committee office. There, Jackie explains that, as vice president, she spoke with Scarlett almost every day. She also reveals a crucial detail. Only the president had the keys to the office safe. That detail makes Jane emphasize the importance of finding the missing keys. They could be the key to something much bigger. At that moment, Van Pelt brings alarming information. Ashrad emptied her bank accounts that very morning, and security at the development reports that her house is completely empty. Everything suggests that she has fled. Lisbon interprets the news as a clear sign of guilt, but Jane, with a slight smile, seems to see the entire board. "I know exactly where she is," he says calmly. Ashrad's supposed escape leads the CBI team to the Cliffside Inn, an elegant and discreet hotel that seems almost designed for people who want to remain unnoticed. Convinced they are about to arrest a key suspect in Scarlett's murder, Rigsby and Van Pelt enter one of the rooms with determination. However, the scene they find is nothing like what they expected. Far from hiding, Ashrad is in bed with Mandy, the same woman who had laughed off any suggestion of a romance with Victor. After getting past the initial shock, Van Pelt takes control of the interrogation with an unusual firmness. Her tone is direct, almost relentless, and she quickly gets Ashrad to talk. The woman admits that she fled, but not because she had anything to do with the murder. She was afraid her relationship with Mandy would become public, and even worse, that Victor would discover the financial disaster she had caused inside the company. For months, she had been taking money from the reserve fund to cover failed investments, and the situation had become impossible to sustain. Running away had seemed like the only way out before she had to face the consequences. Meanwhile, Mandy waits in the hallway, trying to appear calm, although her nervousness is obvious. She repeats again and again that she has done nothing illegal, and that her only concern is keeping her private life away from the scandal. At that moment, Cho arrives with discouraging news. The judge will not approve the warrant to search the club's safe until the following day. Rigsby, always quick to improvise, pretends that he has uncovered an important secret and asks Mandy not to tell anyone. She agrees solemnly, unaware that she has fallen into the trap, and walks away down the hallway. As soon as she disappears from sight, Rigsby congratulates Cho for playing along so naturally. Far away, Lisbon and Van Pelt visit Victor to inform him about Ashrad's embezzlement. The widower listens to the news with a mixture of disbelief and exhaustion, as if every new revelation adds another weight to his already fragile emotional state. During the conversation, little Oscar plays at being a wizard, completely absorbed in his imaginary world and unaware of the storm surrounding his family. Victor explains that Scarlett had been paying off some debts by selling her jewelry, and that she had recently made deals with several boutiques, convinced that her business would finally take off. When the agents ask him about several calls to prepaid phones and a recurring appointment in Marysville, he answers without hesitation that it was an antique jewelry market where his wife used to look for pieces and inspiration. However, that story begins to fall apart when Cho calls to report that the lipstick found on the glass at the crime scene belongs to an extremely exclusive brand, the kind sold only in high-end stores. It is not a minor detail. It greatly reduces the number of possible suspects and points toward someone accustomed to luxury. Lisbon tells him to continue the investigation in Marysville. At the same time, Jane and Rigsby return to the country club to continue interviewing the women on the committee. There, Heather approaches Jane and starts a conversation that soon takes on an intimate tone. With a calmness that seems practiced after many repetitions, she tells him that the previous year she lost her 16-year-old daughter in a car accident. They did not move after the tragedy because they could not afford it, so every corner of the place constantly reminds her of what happened. Jane listens carefully and with empathy, sensing a deep sadness in her words, one that has still not healed. Meanwhile, the investigation in Marysville reveals a reality very different from the one Victor described. The supposed antique market turns out to be a dusty field where a noisy motocross race is taking place. Amid the roar of the engines and the crowd, Cho manages to locate a dealer known as Digger and arrests him after a quick maneuver that does not go unnoticed by those around them. The arrest quickly produces results. Inside Digger's van, they find a large quantity of pills of all kinds. During the interrogation, the man admits without much resistance that Scarlett was one of his best customers. She mainly bought prescription medication and diet pills, products that were easy to resell among wealthy women looking for quick and discreet solutions. They had met at a flea market. He thought her jewelry was flashy but tasteless, and suggested that there were much more profitable ways to make money. Scarlett immediately understood the potential of the business. However, lately she had hinted that she was thinking about leaving the operation, something Digger did not like at all. On top of that, she had started receiving calls from another woman with an extremely refined voice. He does not know who she is, but he has her number saved in his phone. At Lisbon's suggestion, he decides to call her right then and there. The answer comes almost immediately. A phone rings inside the country club office. Jane and Rigsby, who had been waiting in the darkness, convinced that someone would return for the safe, suddenly turn on the lights and discover Patience standing in front of the open compartment, completely frozen with surprise. During the interrogation, the woman admits that she took the keys when she went to comfort Victor after Scarlett's death and insists that she only opened the safe out of curiosity. She also admits that many people knew Scarlett was dealing pills, although she tries to downplay the matter. Since the evidence is not enough to arrest her, the team is forced to let her go while arranging discreet surveillance. Cho and Rigsby take up positions outside her house. To make the wait more bearable, Rigsby casually comments on the supposed advantages of dating older women, earning little more than an expressionless look from Cho. Patience, noticing that she is being watched, steps outside with a courtesy bordering on irony and offers them a panini so they will not go hungry. At the same time, Lisbon and Jane inform Victor about his wife's illegal activities. The man seems genuinely surprised, something that catches Jane's attention, especially because several neighbors appeared to know about it. During the visit, Jane notices Oscar and approaches him. The boy admits how much he misses his mother, and despite his young age, seems to understand that he will never see her again. Jane tells him that he understands that pain better than anyone because he also lost his family. He explains that imagination can become a refuge when reality becomes too painful, and to ease the tension, the two engage in an imaginary sword fight that Oscar ends up winning, bringing a smile to the room that contrasts sharply with the sadness surrounding the home. Hours later, Cho and Rigsby are once again watching the club while Patience enjoys a massage. Jackie approaches Rigsby with obvious interest and begins flirting with him. During their conversation, the agent notices the lipstick she is wearing and immediately recognizes the exclusive brand found at the crime scene. Jackie explains that she bought it after seeing Patience wearing the same shade on the night of the party. Before they can investigate that detail any further, a horrifying scream tears through the hallway. A woman runs out of the massage room in a panic. The agents rush inside, but they are too late. Patience is lying on the floor, dead from a precise stab wound to the abdomen. Ironically, the surveillance had been so discreet that it failed to prevent the attack. When the team analyzes the new crime, a possible motive emerges with disturbing clarity. Victor may have wanted to silence her, especially if she knew too much about Scarlett's hidden business dealings. Jane then decides to put a risky strategy into motion. He meets with Jackie and Heather for a drink and casually lets it slip that the police are about to arrest Victor. Both women react with horror at the thought that little Oscar could end up in foster care, and the rumor quickly begins to spread. Soon afterward, the Marchesa mansion fills with curious onlookers and television cameras as Victor is escorted away in handcuffs toward a police car. Amid the chaos, Oscar runs out in tears, begging for his father. The scene is devastating, and that is when Heather, visibly broken, can no longer bear it. She pushes her way through the crowd, approaches Jane, and with a trembling voice confesses that she killed Scarlett, and that she was also responsible for Patience's death. Once at CBI headquarters, Heather no longer tries to resist. The confession seems to have taken the last bit of strength she had left, and now she speaks with a mixture of exhaustion and relief, as if carrying the weight of what she had done for so long had finally broken her. Patrick Jane calmly explains that he began to suspect her because of a detail that would have gone unnoticed by almost anyone. She was the only woman at the club who was not wearing any jewelry designed by Scarlett. In a world where nearly every member proudly displayed those pieces as symbols of status, that absence did not seem accidental. It was not indifference, it was rejection, but that was not the only thing that caught his attention. Jane sensed a deep emotional fragility in Heather, a sadness hidden beneath a carefully controlled surface. The death of her daughter had not only devastated her, but completely destroyed her emotional balance. It was the kind of pain that does not disappear with time, but instead transforms into something darker. With her eyes lost in the distance, Heather begins to explain what happened. The night her daughter died, the girl had taken some pills given to her by a friend. That friend had obtained them from her own mother, and that woman had purchased them directly from Scarlett. The drugs affected the girl's condition before she drove, contributing to the accident that ended her life. From that moment on, Heather lived with the certainty that Scarlett's respectable appearance concealed a dangerous operation that had caused irreversible consequences. She remembers the night at the mansion with bitter clarity, the laughter, the toasts, the elegant music, and at the center of it all, Scarlett acting like the perfect hostess, proud of her flawless world. For Heather, that image was unbearable. While she was living with a pain impossible to describe, Scarlett was celebrating as if nothing had happened, as if the damage caused by her business did not exist. Her outrage mixed with grief until it became an irreversible decision. That night, taking advantage of the constant movement of the guests and the distractions of the celebration, Heather poisoned Scarlett's drink with rat poison. The message she left in lipstick, "Now we're even," was not some theatrical outburst. It was the expression of a twisted logic born from suffering. In her mind, the scales had finally been balanced. However, the story did not end with that death. After the murder, Heather heard Patience reassuring several women from the club, telling them they had nothing to worry about. She would take care of the business and keep the supply of pills running without interruption. Those words destroyed any illusion that the tragedy could serve as a warning. Nobody had learned anything. Everything would continue exactly as before. Convinced that the danger remained and that other families could suffer the same horror, Heather decided to finish what she had started. Days later, she took advantage of a moment of carelessness during the massage, grabbed a knife, and stabbed Patience with a single precise strike. When she finishes her story, the silence in the room is heavy. There is no anger in her voice, and no satisfaction either, only the emptiness of someone who has crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. For the team, the case is finally solved, although the feeling it leaves behind is far from one of triumph. Sometime later, Victor and little Oscar arrive at CBI headquarters to thank the agents for their work. Victor reveals that he has decided to leave the community and return to his hometown. He needs to get away from the memories and start over somewhere his son can grow up without the constant shadow of what happened. The grief is still there, but at least the uncertainty is gone. Before leaving, they run into Jane and personally thank him for his help. As usual, he tries to downplay the gesture and redirects the recognition with a certain discomfort. He is not comfortable playing the hero, nor receiving gratitude for doing what he considers simply his job. As father and son walk away, Jane admits that he always finds it strange when people thank him. Lisbon, with a half-smile, tells him that it is probably because he likes to project that image of the lone hero, almost like the Lone Ranger, someone who appears, solves the problem, and disappears before receiving the credit. Jane cannot help but admit that she has a point. The atmosphere in the office changes when Jackie walks in with confidence and a presence that is difficult to ignore. Jane, amused, watches Rigsby's reaction and prepares to tease him, but the agent surprises him by admitting that this is not a casual visit. He was the one who invited her to dinner. The natural way he says it immediately gets a reaction from Van Pelt, who cannot hide a certain discomfort mixed with irony. As the routine slowly returns to the CBI, the case leaves behind an unavoidable reflection. Pain can transform even ordinary people into someone capable of extreme acts, and beneath the most elegant surfaces, there are often secrets far darker than anyone would be willing to imagine. If you enjoyed this episode, don't stop here. Head over to my channel and check out the complete playlist of The Mentalist, with every episode organized in order from beginning to end. Watch the full series, follow Patrick Jane's journey, and discover all the hidden details, mysteries, and secrets along the way. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more The Mentalist episodes, breakdowns, and stories.